And greetings! Happy Friday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace, joined as always by Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. We'll also be joined by our buddy and our colleague and one of our editors here at the Blaze. So Rob Eno will be joining us here momentarily for the Deace Group. Of course, we are brought to you by us. Still time with Father's Day this weekend for you to take advantage of the massive discount we're offering for your dad, so you can give him something he actually cares about this year, not another tie or something else he's got plenty of. Instead, give him the gift of people having his back. All right? People that are actually promoting him and thanking him for being masculine and urging him to be even more so, in fact, if that is necessary, and supporting the values that he probably supports as well. All right, so if that's your dad, you can give him a great gift for Father's Day with the code DAD30 at blazetv.com/Deace, code DAD30 at blazetv.com/Deace, a year subscription for $30 off with the promo code DAD30 at blazetv.com/Deace. Speaking of dads, my new book, Richie Meets the Rainbow, representing here, because this was my Father's Day gift from my daughters, was actually this t-shirt with the cover of the book on it. So Dad is the hero. There it is. Thank you, Rob. Dad is the hero of Richie Meets the Rainbow as well. So to avoid all the suppression we're currently getting at Amazon right now, go to richiemeetstherainbow.com. Just click on the order now button. We'll take you right to where you can order it. Right now, get your copy, RICHIE, richiemeetstherainbow.com. By the way, the 5-star reviews are rolling in. So thank you guys. We had a few dozen of them show up just like in the last 24 hours. So let's keep those going. It helps with the algorithm at Amazon as well. Get your copy today. Celebrate Pride Month as it was always meant to be, with the missing link of the story. Doesn't every hero's journey require an origin story? And yet somehow the heroic journey of Pride has left its origin story by the wayside. Funny how that works. So we're just humbly doing what we can to assist a cause here in the interest of public service by reinserting the lost origin of Pride, and then the lost art of dads getting to be the heroes for their kids again. All right, Richie Meets the Rainbow is where you can go, RICHIE, and our goal is to send one of these to every single public school library in America, but we need your help to do that. There's about roughly 10,000 public school libraries in America. It's like 9857 or something is the number. So it's roughly 10,000. All right. So we want to send one of these books to every public school library in America with your gracious help, of course. And I'm sure your public school is just dying for someone like you to step in and provide them this service. So richiemeetstherainbow.com is where you can go. RICHIE. Click the order now button. Will take you right to where you need to go to avoid all the censorship and suppression at richiemeetstherainbow.com. All right, coming up next hour, it'll be your turn with some Feedback Friday, but let's get it rolling right now with the Deace Group. Your weekly look at the week that was begins, as it always does, with issue 1, bleep, Lord Nefarious Says.
You told me you got caught up in the tear gas as well. Describe what happened to you.
Oh, just tasted a little tear gas. Tasted like fascism.
We need to stop the raids. This should not be happening in our city. It is not warranted.
The president must call back these ICE agents.
There have been no violence where anybody that was protesting hit anybody, shot anybody.
Look at the flag. Yeah, Guy, I see
there it is.
You
Mexican flag, Could you
spell and pronounce your name for me?
Yeah, it's Christina with a CH, and then Maimone, M-A-I-M-O-N-E.
You have your face covered. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, because there's been a lot of really fascist responses to protesting under this administration, and we don't really know who's going to show up or what's going to happen, so it's just a protective measure.
The vast majority of protesters and demonstrators are peaceful.
Peaceful. There was no violence.
Peacefully. Peaceful. Peaceful. Peaceful.
Relatively mellow.
Peacefully. A bunch of people having fun watching cars burn.
Passionate.
This is our city, and this was Mexico. You can't kick us out of the land that was ours.
Look, I remember a few stand-ups ago when I talked about what terrorism looks like. This is it. There should be no question to what our country would look like had the Confederacy won.
How do y'all as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no, not work. I care so much.
So
I know I'm a woman, but please try to limit yourself to answering my questions.
What is a woman is the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I am a single mom of 4 who are ages 21, 17, 12, and 11. I would like to tell you my story on how SNAP benefit has helped me.
I shot me in the nuts, and now I'm losing a ball. Surgery is tomorrow.
What was that at the end?
It's being characterized. Don't know how accurate it is, but that guy was shot with a rubber bullet apparently in one of these riots, and now he's getting surgery because he has to lose that ball.
Play stupid games.
You win stupid prizes, right? I mean, the wages of sin, right? What's a wage again? I forgot. What is that?
You earned it.
You earned it, indeed. All right, let's get to it. Rob, as the guest, you get the first, shall we say, crack at things here this Pride Month. What was the most terrible of terribles just now for you, and why, Rob?
I'm going to go with the losing of the ball. I'm going tomorrow to Taylor, Texas. With Peter Geidel here at Blaze News, we're going to go cover the protests at the ICE detention facility in Taylor, Texas, which they have said they're going to go to. So it's about 3 hours from here. So I am hoping that I get to keep mine. So I guess that is the most depraved thing. But I will say, the second thing is that this was Mexico. I would just like to let the three of you know that you are standing on French land. And as a Franco-American, French-Canadian, I would like it if you would leave the state of Iowa, since that was once France, and we are going to retake it.
I think if there's one group of people we are not concerned about taking anything from us, it's probably the French. Fair. I mean, I think after the first Israeli blast last night, I think I saw France on television surrendering. Were they on TV surrendering immediately? Okay.
Well, this
is their
after
prime minister getting
the
slapped by his
monarchy.
70-year-old wife on television yet again. Was that happening again? Todd, what about you?
What is Chicago's
Brandon Johnson?
That guy, Representative Sanchez, Governor Walz, same person. Elected retards. Just across the entire nation. Folks, this is a republic if you can keep it kind of stuff. Like, even where's Sanchez from, who went full I am woman, hear me roar? I'm sure it's
Mexico. She's from Mexico.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be this way. I don't know what to tell you. Anybody?
Here's the positive. Did you hear the audible groaning in the crowd when she dropped that?
Mm. Oh yeah.
That I'm just telling you right now.
See,
that doesn't happen. You need to learn to acknowledge progress. That doesn't even happen 24 months ago. That doesn't happen.
Do.
They did something. They did. They actually exerted a level of public disgust. We want them to go up there and smack her around?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, they did. I think acknowledge progress. That would not have happened even 24 months ago. Maybe even 12 months ago that wouldn't have happened.
Our standards are so low.
It takes a single, you begin a journey with a single step. Grasshopper. A journey begins with a single step.
Down the shovel.
Yes.
Now, let's see. All of that, this is what we're going to get into that. This, to me, is what Israel is just flat out rejecting. No, not baby steps. You killed our people. Now you're going to pay. I just you can't have Americans with people like that in charge anywhere, including in blue states.
100% agree with that.
Including in blue states.
I agree with that. But I like to look at the picture of what I look like on my wedding day. I was 400 pounds. That picture's from 28 years ago. I weighed in this morning at the lowest weight I've weighed in over 30 years, since before my wife knew me, since I was getting flunked out of college. All right. And you just don't undo that level of damage you do to yourself in 6 months or 8 months or 12 months. Okay. To recover from something like that. It requires, really, in many respects, I've just made a generational lifestyle change. Okay. And there's been, incremental progress here, and then huge progress in small spurts, and then incremental progress again, because it's just kind of tiring to keep grinding away, So you kind of revert back a little bit. Then you're like, okay, I hate this again, so let me do it again. Right. This is the push and pull of being a human being. Right. And, an entire generation of Americans felt as if they instantly had to grab their ankles when a morbidly obese Karen tries an I am woman, hear me roar, okay, as if that was just a straight, thus speaketh Zarathustra, and, and we immediately are called to attention. So I'm gonna actually give us some, not to mention, she tried pulling this with a homo, okay, and the crowd is like, oh, come on, okay, I'm actually gonna say, you know what, that's the first day at the gym, congratulations. First day at the gym. Now I got to go back tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. That was the first day at the gym. Good for you, man. You tell me you just took your first steps into a larger world, as Ben Kenobi once said. No?
I want more.
Fair. Okay, I tried. Aaron, go ahead.
Man, there was a target-rich environment. How about a couple of honorable mentions? That woman who spelled out and then pronounced her name, saying that she's wearing a mask for her protection. That was ostensibly because she
spells her name, but she's wearing a mask.
But because she doesn't want to be identified. That was fun. We'll get to Mayor Bass and that one, that congresswoman who was talking about the ICE raids need to stop later on. We could go to. It was the local TV outlet saying these are just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn. Let's go though to. Let's go to it was Congresswoman Sanchez trying to play the woman card on a homosexual. I don't think there's anything more that needs to be said.
No, I think that's it. I think we're done here. I think you nailed it. All right, let's get to the exit question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the odds, our beloved sister and colleague Jill Savage has to worry about Lindsey Graham sexually harassing her, and 10 being the odds that a very svelte Rob Eno here does. Watch your 6, Rob. Watch your 6. Rank this week's level of total depravity, Todd.
And this is more stupid than depraved.
I agree with you.
I'll go down to a 9.
To me, this was this week's. This was more of a double-digit IQ. Says I agree. Yeah. All right, Aaron. What about you?
10.
10. Rob. What about you?
Well, I'm normally a 5, but I think I'm going to go to a 6 or a 7, and I just want Richie to watch out because I think he's got more to watch out for with Lindsey Graham in the sequel that I've seen on the internet.
Yes, Ukraine edition. Yes. All right. Let's get to the main event here. Issue 2. Israel strikes Iran hard.
President Trump in recent days was still signaling he hoped Iran would come to the table to negotiate a deal on nuclear. But he did admit to the New York Post this week he was growing skeptical that could happen. Then on Thursday night, Friday morning in the Middle East, over 200 Israeli jets attacked Iran, reportedly killing the entirety of Iran's general staff, including top military commanders and the commander-in-chief of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. They killed nuclear scientists and knocked out nuclear facilities. The operation was dubbed Rising Lion and in all took out around 100 critical targets in Iran overnight. This morning, President Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, 2 months ago, I gave Iran a 60-day ultimatum to make a deal. They should have done it. Today is day 61. I told them what to do, but they just couldn't get there. Now they have perhaps a second chance. In another post on Truth Social, Trump said, quote, certain Iranian hardliners spoke bravely, but they didn't know what was about to happen. They're all dead now, and it will only get worse. There's already been great death and destruction, but there's still time to make make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire. No more death, no more destruction. Just do it before it's too late. God bless you all. End quote.
All right, so here's what I want us to do. I want us to discuss what our immediate thoughts were last night, and then I want us to discuss what we think now about 12 hours later with more details and more to digest. And I will start. I think my immediate thoughts last night were, how devastating is this going to be? I was texted by a pastor friend a pastor contact I have, who is in Israel now. I was texted by him yesterday afternoon in a private text thread that he's in with a few other people, ministry leaders around the country I know. He's made over 25 stops to Israel, and he was told by a Israeli government official he knows, get out of the country right now. You got 30 hours to get out of here, otherwise you're staying a while. So him and his people made the arrangements to get out 2 hours right after that tip. And that kind of was the first inclination here that this is going to go down. And so from that point forward for me, I was really just considering how hard of a hit was this going to be, and then how vicious would the Iranian response be in the immediate aftermath, and what kind of spillover potential are we looking at. As we sit here now 12 hours later, I think this is one of the most devastating offensive strikes in the history of modern warfare. You know what? I think our Jewish audience and the Israelis will take this as the ironic compliment that it is meant to be. But y'all just blitzkrieged them, is what you did. I mean, you hit them on every single front simultaneously. Targeted assassinations of the leadership structure. Targeted, concerted efforts at strategic, targets. We're not being inundated now this morning with collateral damage of civilians. There had to be some, given the level of devastation here. But notice that's not the lead story here this morning, as we're all waking up to more details. I think now much of the I think we're also learning now, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, just to name a few, are countries that have participated in intercepting Iranian drones and missiles aimed at Israel here so far today. I think this reconciles with what we've been trying to tell you on this show for the last couple of days. It's not just as simple as you're a Zionist cuck who wants forever war, or, you are soft on Islam. There's more nuance to this than that. And there are plenty of other Arab and Muslim Arab countries that do not want a nuclear Iran either. And they just kind of outed themselves by being on the list of people, taking up defensive measures on Israel's behalf. I think the level of devastation of this attack is extraordinary. In terms of how weakened, not a single Iranian jet got off of the ground last night. That is incredible. And I also think now that President Trump, I think, should be commended. I think this is some of the best statecraft I've ever seen. He's had warring factions in his coalition, and it's in our own audience. It's everywhere on the right. And we'll just use two names to kind of put the names with the wings. You've got the Mark Levin wing and the Tucker Carlson wing. And they're going at each other on social media, on righty social media all the time, on their shows back and forth all the time. And these are major thought leaders and major coalitions in Trump's overall coalition. And I think he managed them very well. I mean, he gave the Iranians a deal. He gave them a timetable for a deal, a timetable that extended for months. Trump has cut deals with the Saudis, with Qatar, with much of the Arab world. That has demonstrated if they're willing to deal, he'll do a deal. So it's not like there's no precedent here. He gave the Iranians every opportunity. He did everything that the Tucker Carlson wing that is sick of forever war wanted him to do. He did it all. And all the Iranians had to do was prove one time in a generation that the Mark Levin wing was wrong about them. That's all they had to do one time and cut a deal and be at least somewhat reasonable for once in 50 years. They were unwilling to do that. So he gave them a chance to save face. He gave them a chance to come to the table. I mean, Trump has demonstrated that, frankly, a lot of the Arab Muslim world is willing to do a deal, surprisingly, when there's peace and prosperity on the table. Okay? The Iranians, it mattered more to them to be nuclear capable. And who knows if they were just going to be nuclear capable next week. I'm not sure I buy that either. Okay? But it's no one doubts they were pursuing this and have been for decades. So this meant more to them than peace and prosperity. And they let that be known. And a lot of their leaders died last night as a result. And so after letting the Tucker Carlson wing have their chance and prove to us that Iran can join here the Abrahamic Accord Brotherhood, they couldn't do it. And so then the Mark Levin wing got their way. Now here's the thing, if you're the Mark Levin wing, if you're going to do this, you better go in hard and you better go in well. It cannot be half-assed. Support will slip real fast. Patience will wear thin really fast. And what the Israelis pulled off here is, I mean, in terms of modern offensive strikes, it's probably the most devastating we've seen on this planet since the Germans rolled out Blitzkrieg in the fall of 1939. What they did to the Iranians last night. And continues on today. So I think Trump managed his coalitions very well. I think that the last 12 hours and the aftermath could not have gone any better. But there is still uncertainty on the table that needs to be considered. China buys about 80% of Iran's oil exports every year. I'm guessing they're not all that excited to see a sizable chunk of their petro imports greatly diminished this morning. What will be the spillover effect of that? There are Iranian global terrorist cells all over the world.
And we just had a porous border for the last 4 years.
Yes. What will those retaliations look like? Will they now try to, for instance, actively insert themselves into some of these no king protests in order to gin up tensions and violence here in our homeland? Okay. And then we have a very desperate now, what's left of the Iranian high command, very desperate to cling. They were already losing their grip on their culture anyway, so they're going to be desperate to cling to power. And desperate times, who knows what their last battle of the bulge gasp may be here, right? So there are still spillover potentials, and so those of you that are skeptical of this, even though I'm more in favor of it because of how effective it was orchestrated, I understand your concerns, and I'm trying to give you, frankly, an accommodation that I don't think you'll probably give many of the people that disagree with you, to be honest with you, all right? So there will be aftershocks here to this. And it's just a matter of how devastating they are and how devastatingly effective now the U.S.-Israeli alliance can be in mitigating those moving forward. My thoughts. Todd, what are yours?
My first thoughts were all about nukes and their imminence, or did they in fact now exist? And the answer to that is fascinating either way, because if the answer is they were imminent, it's actually more obvious why what happened. If they weren't imminent, this is a interesting change in the status quo as well. So how have we decided to, and why? What is the priority in terms of going after Iran now versus at any time in the past, if it really isn't explicitly about the imminence of nukes? As it applies to 12 hours later, there's multiple takes. I'll just highlight one. A couple Catholic thought leaders that I don't remember have any particular take one way or other on the Jews. So none of the reform stuff that Steve often talks about is part of this. But they're instantly, and I can't channel Steve this way, but I'll give it a very brutal try, where they're doing their version of preemptive strikes are never acceptable. No, guys. Are you really going to do this? You got to be kidding me. There's nothing preemptive about this. Iran absolutely signed off on what Hamas did to Israel. They slaughtered their people in cold blood. This is all an extension of that. You all picked this fight. You've been picking fights like this forever. It's, as I said earlier, on a different issue. Men have gotten across this entire world, have gotten so soft on where the line is, where that if you step over it, you're going to get smacked. This is not preemptive. This is just. And this has nothing to do with eschatology. As Steve said, Donald Trump gave him every opportunity to play a different tune.
This did not have to happen.
No, it did not.
Rob?
Yeah, I my thoughts yesterday, as I actually sent your Facebook post around to my team, to the news team here at the Blaze, to get them ready to have an article. We had one up at 7:30 this morning. We don't have an overnight team at the Blaze, but we had something up at 7:30, and we had started working on it yesterday afternoon in anticipation of a strike, because your Facebook post about Meet That Pastor getting in contact with you, and then the other things that we saw in the days leading up to it. I mean, they took away all non-essential personnel from the Baghdad embassies and other embassies in the Middle East. So you knew something was imminent, right? Something was going to happen. The breadth of this, they took out the entire leadership of the Iranian Republican Army, the Republican Guard. It's gone. I agree with you that it is a stunning attack. I just don't want to see us get further involved in Middle East politics. Iran has every right to do this. They got attacked. I think the statecraft that you saw in the first Trump administration that got destroyed by the Biden administration, where Trump had Saudi Arabia almost signing not a peace deal, but almost it wasn't an alliance, but it was dang close to it, right? In the first administration, and then Trump loses and Joe Biden's auto pen becomes president. And then that goes to the wayside. And I think he's trying to build this up. I was fully expecting this morning that what we saw transpire, that these Arab countries were going to come, not to Israel's defense, but to their own defense. Because they do not, Sunnis and Shias don't get along. You think the Catholics and Protestants go at it. And to a degree, we saw that in Northern Ireland, but nothing like this. I mean, Sunnis and Shias do not get along. It is an ancient blood feud. And they do not want Iran with the nuclear weapon. And I was fully expecting, I almost fully expected Saudi Arabia to kind of, join in on this attack. And they may in the next coming days, for all we know. I just hope that this doesn't become something that drags the United States in. And I hope that, we have assets on the ground. Probably not, because we've had, the Biden administration for the past 4 years, and who knows what they have for intelligence agents on the ground to help guide this into a destruction of the clerical regime in Iran. But I could see that happen. I mean, the Shah's son has declared himself king of Iran, in 1980?
Mm-hmm.
And he's still sitting there somewhere in the Middle East, ready to go in and ride in and take his country back. And I would not be shocked if you saw that within the next 30 days. If you saw the Shah's heir ride into Iran and retake the country and make it a somewhat liberal Western-style democracy again, which it was until the clerics rose up. Afghanistan was too until the Soviets went in.
Aaron, I want to make sure you have time, so we're going to carry this over to the next segment for you. Okay. Todd, why don't you address, we got about a minute and a half here. What is the big thing you are looking at over the next 30 days? You just heard Rob say he could foresee a regime change happening internally by how this has so destabilized the Iranian high command. That would be a dream scenario, frankly. But what do you think over the next 30 days? What are you looking for as an aftermath?
Continued Israeli resolve. You have to totally change the cycle. I mentioned it yesterday, the psychological paradigm. Oh, the rules are different. The West isn't just going to cave. Excuses aren't just going to be made. We're not going to suddenly start using all the buzzwords. One of them right now, they're trying it right now, preemptive strikes. Guys, we need an entirely new set of terms, and Israeli has to set them non-negotiably. So far, so good, but it's only 24 hours.
I think Iran may be given another 30 days by the West, the United States. Hey, we took out all of your hardline negotiators. You want to reconsider here for 30 days? And then if that doesn't happen, I could see in the next 100 days, potentially what Rob is talking about come to pass.
I think the reason why I said Israel is, if they're going to do this, it has to be devastating, is because it has to set an example to anybody else. The psychology thing we were having yesterday works both ways.
Yeah.
If you're going to do this and you look weak, that psychology flips against you. Lots of people like Turkey now are taking notice and say, hey, these guys are serious. Yes. Okay. More in a moment. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by our friends over at Trust and Will. You know, to get the most out of life, you got to be prepared. A lot of us don't realize that a will doesn't cover everything when it comes to estate planning, and Trust and Will can help ensure that your loved ones are covered when it comes to things like medical decisions and power of attorney. So go to trustandwill.com/Deace right now and get 20% off their simple, secure, and expert-backed estate planning services. This is what we use at our house to update our situation, and Amy just absolutely raves about how easy and customizable it is. Easy to use website, simple to navigate, plus all your information and documents are securely stored with bank level encryption. Each will or state is will or trust is state specific, legally valid, and customized to your needs. So you can't control everything, but Trust and Will can help you take control of protecting your family's future as best you can. Go to trustandwill.com/Deace for 20% off. That's 20% off at Trust and Will. The word and. Trustandwill.com/Deace. Trustandwill.com/Deace. All right, redirect over to you now, Aaron. Your thoughts immediately last night as this went down, and now 12 hours later. If there anything different, more elaborate, etc.
Personally, got a buddy who just deployed to the Middle East. Don't know if he's over there yet. And I was like, oh, crap. Great timing. So obviously prayers for all Americans in that area. Secondly, though, when I first saw this happening, I thought this is the big one or it's bust. The big one meaning the big confrontation between Iran and Israel that has been festering for 50 years. And it certainly seems it was one-ended, though, or one-sided. Here we are 12 hours later, driving into work this morning, listening to the radio. I fully expected to hear some sort of news of reprisal, buildings on fire in Tel Aviv, attacks of some nature. And I was surprised that didn't really materialize. At least it hasn't materialized yet. And I think there's two things going on here. I think, number one, if you zoom out a little bit, all of Iran's proxies were meant to be the sword of Damocles over Israel if they ever dared to do something like they did last night. Mm-hmm. Well, in the wake of October 7th, those proxies are largely diminished. And so I think that's a big part of why we're not seeing any successful reprisals so far. The other part of this is whenever you hear news of, and this is illustrated perfectly with the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Anytime you hear early reports from conflicts, war conflicts in foreign lands, you really don't know how much of it is accurate. So you look at other indicators to try to verify the claims that are being made. And one of the claims that was made last night is that the entire general command forces of Iran's military, they were basically all taken out last night. Well, how would you get verification, at least prima facie verification that, or at least some version of that is true? A lack of military response would probably be a primary, at least immediate military response would be a primary indicator. And so we didn't really see that, at least not to my knowledge anyway. So I think that's one claim that is absolutely true coming out of this conflict. So that doesn't mean, though, like we just talked about in the first segment, that doesn't mean, though, that the IRGC doesn't have cells and operatives spread out all over the West. I think that's true. And they would have been fools from their perspective not to take advantage of the wide open border of the Biden administration and get some inside the United States. So that's something that I'm very concerned about. I will say, I told you this before the show, this claim that Iran, that I saw circulating last night, that Iran was just days away from being nuclear weapon capable, I do not buy that. And to me, you don't even need that to justify what they did. We talked about this in passing yesterday. It was Iran's, their proxies were diminished, greatly diminished. Their air defenses in Iran proper, greatly diminished or gone. So if you're looking at this from Israel's perspective, it's now or never. It's now or never. And they gave them 60 days to act like adults, and they couldn't do it. So I hate war. Everybody here hates war. Wish this hadn't happened. But make no mistake, the onus is on Iran here. The onus is on Iran. If you don't think that they were developing their nuclear capabilities to build a nuclear bomb, I've got a lab in Wuhan to sell you.
Then they would have cut a deal.
And they would have cut a deal for sure.
Yep, made some money and moved on.
And I do not buy the narrative that they were a few days away from having a nuclear capable weapon or anything like that. But it's they were a hell of a lot closer to that yesterday than they were 15 years ago. Thank you, Barack Obama, for kicking off this anyway. for kicking this whole episode off.
That's great that you mentioned that. So thank you for pointing that out. Yes.
So I wish that we weren't here, but make no mistake, the onus is on Iran, not on the West, not on Israel.
Essentially, Trump offered them the Obama deal, but except this time I'm going to do the kind of oversight that we all knew Obama was not going to do. And again, for a guy that knows negotiation at a very high level and has made a lifetime out of making billions of dollars, in that world, he's fleshing out the false objection. Okay. I'm going to sit here and take it from the Mark Levins and my own audience, my own base for a few months. I'll take the heat. Well, I'll offer you the deal that Tucker Carlson and his people want me to offer you. You betcha. Okay. Except we're just going to give you the actual oversight that the Obamaites, the Obama Easters, were never going to give you. All right. Because they actually wanted you to have a nuclear weapon. Okay. They just couldn't just come right out and say it, if we're being honest about that. All right. So take the deal then, right? I mean, in 60 days, I gave you months to take this deal. All you had to do is just say, all right, yeah, we're in. We like money too. But they couldn't do it. Why? Because they knew that he was going to do some kind of actual oversight, or at least they thought there was a decent enough chance that they could not risk it. And that's why we ended up here. This is how negotiation works. There's a winner and a loser if someone is negotiating in bad faith. If someone's negotiating in good faith, doesn't mean you agree on everything. But you can see on some level, Saudis are willing to negotiate in good faith. Lots of guys that were in that room in Riyadh in 2017 and earlier this year, able to negotiate in good faith when the terms are favorable to them, right? We offered Iran favorable terms. They could have taken it. And they could have proven Candace Owens correct, who's now out there saying that basically Trump's a Zionist cuck and is led around by Bibi Netanyahu, is what she's saying as we speak right now. None of this had to happen. They just could have taken the deal. So then ask yourselves then why they didn't take it. There's no excuse. Trump has made numerous deals with Muslim countries. There's no excuse. They can't say Trump can't be trusted. All right. At the same time, he's walking down the streets of Riyadh with the king of Saudi Arabia. All right. And he's, blowing kisses to the new leaders of Syria. So that's that objection's fleshed out. Can't use that, right? Okay. So all the onus, because of Trump's actions, all the onus was now placed on the mullahs. And the Ayatollahs just could have said, fine, all right, we'll play ball to some degree, all right, and we'll just fight an information war against the Zionist cucks in Tel Aviv, which is the true capital of the fake country Israel, all right? But they weren't willing to do that. Why? Because there was at least a chance that Trump and his administration were going to do actual oversight of a deal. And so they backed themselves into a corner. Anybody disagree with that analysis?
Nope.
No. Our friend Joel Rosenberg, by the way, said that sirens are going off in Israel as we speak, but I think that's been going on for the last 12 hours or so anyway.
Rob, you disagree with any of that at all, what I just said?
Nope.
All right.
Nope, that's exactly right.
All right, let's get to issue 3. Summer of Love, Redux.
California Senator Alex Padilla is down with the struggle, literally.
On your back. If you let my hands go, put it behind my back. All right.
Senator Padilla just tripped and fell into the Los Angeles Federal Building where DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was giving a press conference. Padilla said he came to the press conference just to ask questions before he was brutally taken to the ground by DHS stormtroopers. Except that's not really what happened. He lunged towards the podium. Nobody knew who he was, and he was detained. Padilla, a 52-year-old, was just signaling his virtue that he's down with the struggle of all the predominantly much younger protesters and rioters on the streets of Los Angeles earlier this week, marching and looting and burning in order to send a message that they do not approve of the enforcement of law. And they were given explicit approval by various Democrat leaders in their state, including LA Mayor Karen Bass. Listen carefully to what she demanded after the National Guard was deployed.
We need to stop the raids. This should not be happening in our city. It is not warranted.
Now, she's not calling for the National Guard to be pulled back, but that the ICE raids need to stop. That kind of gives away the whole ball game. This weekend, a series of hundreds of protests are expected to go down, dubbed the No Kings Parades. Get it? Because they don't want Donald Trump to be king or something. Who knows how violent or nothing burger these parades and protests will be on Saturday, coinciding with Trump's military parade in D.C. But it could just kick off the Summer of Love 2.0.
All right, let's get to the first question here. Aaron, I'll throw this to you. How do you think the Trump administration has handled this so far?
Great. Notice Wednesday night, Thursday night. We're not talking about riots in Los Angeles. So they were pretty resolute. It sounds like on, I think it was Tuesday night, they started making a few arrests after curfew and people stayed out there and it kind of just dispersed. I mentioned that in passing the other day, and I wasn't sure if that was a fair characterization, but I think based on the fact that we haven't really been talking about riots in Los Angeles the last couple of nights, I think that's probably a fair assessment of what went down. Now, when it comes to this weekend, I still think that they need to have a very quick trigger on deploying the National Guard in some of the biggest cities, especially with what went down last night. As a corollary to what we just talked about with Iran, taking probably advantage of an open border during the Biden administration. Who knows how many sleeper cells they would like to have blend into the crowds and agitate and animate those crowds and whip things up into a frenzy. So they need to be very, very vigilant in the coming days.
Todd?
Well, doing what you, Steve, begged multiple times when this was going on in his first term to mobilize the military. The fact that he's doing that and did it quickly, that's a win. But he needs to continue to keep the pressure on, even though temporarily things seems to have subsided. There's all kinds of evidence that has been discovered by Data Republican that the same nefarious forces are funding this thing. There's huge pallets of bricks being dropped off. Like, go find these people, arrest them. There needs to be consequences very quickly for this.
Rob, 1 minute, go. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the Trump administration handled this perfectly. I think the audience needs to know and remember that they did this very limitedly. The National Guard was called up using correct law. They stayed at the federal building. They didn't go out into the streets. But what that did is it put pressure on the LAPD and the California Highway Patrol to actually do their job and to do it. And to Aaron's point, I 100% agree. I remember during the Summer of Love 1.0 in 2020, in places like Boston, there were very peaceful Black Lives Matter protests, and about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, your suburban, pretend Antifa kids showed up in their black suits to get the crowds and move the crowds in a way to agitate them to do violence. And I think that that's what might happen. I think that there's a lot of people that don't like Donald Trump and would mobilize and do it peacefully. But the problem is that there are people that want to create violence and are going to try and figure out how to move these crowds to do it. And that's what we have to be,
very well said. For. That's very well said, Rob. Let's get to the exit question. If the level of rioting we will see this weekend, given what we think is planned, were an AC/DC song, which AC/DC song would it be? A, rock and roll ain't noise pollution. B, if you want blood, you got it. Or C, highway to hell. Aaron?
I think it's probably B, but in a handful of cities. I don't think it's going to be widespread.
All right.
Same.
All right. Rob?
Same.
All right. Quickly for the kicker topic, explain this to me. All right. All right. Do we have these pictures up, Aaron? We have them ready to go?
Sorry. Give me 2 seconds.
All right. I saw this side by side the other day, and it blew my mind when I saw this side by side the other day. All right.
Give me 5 more seconds.
All right.
6 more seconds.
6 more seconds.
7 more seconds.
7. I think.
Oh, it's this thing.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't even see that. It'll be,
I
don't think people want to see this.
I think another Iranian target just exploded just in the time that it's taken to load this up. The Israelis have executed another successful operation. All right. Here it is. Make possible sense of this to me. In fact, this is just for me, Rob, and Todd. Because this is our generation. All right. Go back to when we graduated from high school and tell ourselves this. That 30 years later, Rosie O'Donnell would be just way more attractive than Madonna. Explain this. Does anybody have a very quick 10-second explanation for this? This side by side blew my mind. Todd?
It has to do with the bigger issue, what I was talking about a couple of days ago with Pam Bondi and the bedazzling. And you stop, women, stop.
Madonna's just gone too far, not willing to grow old, is that what you're saying?
Please stop cutting yourself.
Yep. What about you, Rob?
It's 34 years. I hate to kill it to you, Steve, because we're old. But that's just insane to me. But it goes to show that it's, natural and not not screwing with yourself. I mean, there's Brandy Carlisle looks fantastic. The Susanna Hoff from the Bengals looks absolutely fantastic, but they're not sitting there, turning their face into some grotesque monster, which is what Madonna's trying to do. Madonna could have aged gracefully.
Correct.
She did not.
All right, predictions. Aaron, go.
So, as surprised as I was at the lack so far of reprisal from Iran, there will be at least, unfortunately, one semi-successful major response from Iran in the next 48 hours.
All right, Todd.
Public figures like Padilla will be arrested more in the future. They'll deserve to be arrested, but it's also part of a plan. This is how they're going to paint the "you're a tyrant" picture to the public, and the public's going to have to make a decision. Are they going to be suckers again, or are they going to realize, no, these people deserve to be in prison?
I think that choice is going to have to be made. I agree. Rob, go.
I've got to do this because I have to. With 6 weeks to go before training camp, I am predicting that your New England Patriots will be the AFC East champions this year.
Get out of here, dude. Come on now. Come on. Clearly employee drug testing is not a policy in the Blaze.
I'm telling you, we're putting up the statue.
Okay.
My Hall of Fame game predictions aren't so bad, are they now?
No, they're not. In fact, we might need one of those, the palate cleanser. All right, I'm going to give a prediction that Todd's going to love. All right. Based on what I'm seeing in the tracking, I think there's a lot of speculation about this in movie circles next month. I think Superman is going to just absolutely destroy the Fantastic Four at the box office this summer. I think just the vibe is different. I think people are Marvel fatigued, and Marvel is struggling. And I think you just look at the marketing of Superman. They had an ad out today for Father's Day, talking about the key role Superman's dad played in his life, as a kid. I mean, they are buying into the zeitgeist a lot. They are, bright colors, idealism, clear heroes and clear villains. And then you have Marvel is still trying to play in these shades of, and now Sue Storm is the true leader of the Fantastic Four. So what's that nerdrotic? What's he call it? The MCU. Okay. I think Superman is going to, and I wasn't sure about this even a month ago, but I think Superman is just going to destroy the Fantastic Four at the box office this summer.
But you're saying it not because you have any clue about Superman being good. You're just saying the other one is obviously bad.
Well, I think just because one's trying to play into the zeitgeist, the other one still thinks it can oppose it. Yes, and won't learn its lesson. Agreed. Thank you, Rob. Good to see you, brother. All right.
Thanks for having me on.
As always. All right, next hour, it'll be your turn with Feedback Friday. Stay tuned. All right, we're back with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace, he's Todd and he's Aaron McIntyre. I've got to begin with a mea culpa, maxima mea culpa. I am getting notes in my inbox that I referred to the aging wonderfully Roseanne Barr as Rosie O'Donnell last hour, and I did not mean to do that, man. So... And as someone who once knew her ex-husband, Tom Arnold, because he's from our neck of the woods here in Iowa, and he used to hang out at my old radio station, WHO, all the time. And dude was weird, bro. Weird.
No way.
Okay. Dude just, as the late, great Gorilla Monsoon used to say on Monday Night Wrestling, didn't have both oars in the water. Okay. All right. I am ashamed. So I don't know for sure that I said that, but even if there is the slightest of possibilities, all right, that I misnamed Roseanne Barr as Rosie O'Donnell, even if there's a 1% chance, all right, I must throw myself upon the mercies of the altar, all right, and beg for atonement and forgiveness. All right, so my mistake. Thank you for alerting me to it. All right, let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, don't forget to please subscribe to our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then also, we would love it if you listen to the podcast version of the program. If you would show how much you love our show by leaving us a 5-star review. We appreciate each and every single one of those. And then hit subscribe, or if you're tuned in on Apple or iTunes, that would be these days follow. And that makes sure that every time we do a new episode, it shows up for sure in your feed as well. And we appreciate all of you that have done that for us too. Appreciate all of you guys that are leaving us 5-star reviews for Richie Meets the Rainbow over at Amazon. We appreciate that. The book went live this week. And if you want to help sponsor your local public school library, someone else has suggested in my inbox, you can call your local library and request that they order it because they need this. I think that we all agree, particularly this time of year, it is the missing link in many places of public reading in America today. It should be recognized and read publicly from across the fruited plain. Amen?
Reading is fundamental.
It is, indeed. In fact, you might even say that this is the reading rainbow, so to speak. All right, so go to richiemeetstherrainbow.com, RICHIE, richiemeetstherrainbow.com. You can order your copy, and you can sponsor your local public school library or your local library as well at RICHIE. Click the Order Now button, and please keep those reviews coming on Amazon as well. They absolutely help with the algorithm. Thank you guys all very much for that. richiemeetstherrainbow.com, RICHIE. Click the Order Now button there at richiemeetstherrainbow.com. And we are brought to you by our friends over at Freedom Project Academy. If you're wondering now, is it still too late? Did I miss my window? With the school year just a couple of months away now, am I too late to get better options for my kid in the fall? No. All right. The woke are still running many of the government schools out there. That's why you want to head over and get your kid enrolled over at Freedom Project Academy. It's perfected the art of online learning over the last 15 years. Live, anytime homeschool courses for students from kindergarten all the way through high school, built on Judeo-Christian values. FPA dedicated to the mastery of subject matter, where students read full books, write in cursive, study the full scope of history, graduate with knowledge years above their public school peers. They learn how to think, not what to think. And to celebrate 15 years, FPA is offering their biggest discount ever right now. Go to freedomforschool.com and save 15% on all courses when you use the code STEVE15. That's code STEVE15 at freedomforschool.com, promo code STEVE15 to save 15% on all live, anytime homeschool courses. Don't let your kid get dumbed down. All right, go to freedomforschool.com, freedomforschool.com. Take back your child's education. Use the code STEVE15 to get 15% off at freedomforschool.com. All right, you guys ready for some Feedback Friday?
Yes.
Indeed.
All right, let's begin here with Heather Dierks in Hubert, North Carolina. She writes, I find much of your political analysis very good. It's what kept me coming back over the last 4 years. And it's not even that I disagreed with your analysis of Iran yesterday. I'm also torn between the two GOP schools of thought that you articulated. But I thought you kind of rake-stepped, and I got to call you on it, particularly when it comes to the math about spending our sacred blood and treasure. Number one, your analogy, she said, I thought sucked. My analogy that I used yesterday was you hired your buddy, all right, and you don't want to have to fire your buddy. Okay, and therefore you get the assistant manager that you don't like nearly as much. Okay, but he also does not like your buddy and thinks he's terrible at his job, so he's happy to fire him. And so you have him do it instead because it avoids a lot of internal friction. Your kids play together, maybe your wives are friends. Okay, and then we ended up even evolving that to I think an even better analogy, which is how the psychology changes within the Muslim world if Iran were to get a nuclear weapon. And I think the analogy that the three of us collaborated on was Clark thinks Eddie is just as weird as the neighbors do. That's why he makes him sleep in the campground in the driveway. But if Eddie gets the winning lottery ticket at the gas station one day, all of a sudden Clark and the rest of the Griswolds are like, well, he has family, so maybe we should invite him in. He's right. All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's the analogy that she did not like. Number two, she says, you've been very fast and loose saying that in no way you'd let your son go fight in a Habsburg conflict in Ukraine, and I 100% agree with you, but then you turned around and dismissed that math when it involves Iran. This is massively hypocritical. We never even addressed the prospect of... No one's asking No one's asking anything of a number. Well, let me say this first of all, Heather. There is no no one has been able to. Have I made it very clear that I am not a member of the Vladimir Putin fan club? Have I made that clear over the years? Sure. I have received multiple overtures over the years from Russia Today. They didn't just try to get the right-wing influencers that you've heard about. They try to get quite a few of us. I've been invited on Russia Today and that kind of stuff several times over the years. I've never answered one time. Right? I don't think Vladimir Putin's a good person. I don't think he's misunderstood, and I'm not a fan. That being said, no one can demonstrate how he is an immediate threat to me. And no one can demonstrate how him owning some or all of Ukraine really alters the course of my life so much. I mean, I can understand why the people in Davos, it might alter the course of their lives quite a bit, but not mine. On the other hand, I just don't believe there is anything close to a moral equivalency between Vladimir Putin and the immediacy of the perception that he's going to build some kind of new Soviet Union, and what has been clearly demonstrated by Iran by intent and deed most of our lifetimes. I just don't believe they're morally equivalent. Situationally equivalent. So anybody disagree with that?
You didn't even say the thing, so I don't even.
Yeah.
It stands on its own.
So because of that, I didn't even but that's why I didn't consider the two things. They're not even close to the same.
You're working way harder on this than I would, but that's
right.
Not nice, Steve. Everybody knows this about you.
Yes, I'm known for that too. Yes,
you're a generous lover.
Yeah, yes, I am. All right. So Heather goes on to say, to my first point, a better analogy would be you hired your buddy that turned out publicly to be a morally defunct homicidal maniac. That's actually a pretty good analogy. And your Middle East nations are too chicken squat to fire him. So you hire someone else, like the U.S., to do it. What did the U.S. do yesterday? What did the U.S. do yesterday?
I mean, 20 minutes after the attack, Marco Rubio came out and made in no uncertain terms that the United States had nothing to do with this.
Yeah, I mean, people act like Israel doesn't have its own military. When have I advocated any unilateral U.S. military action against Iran?
We're not. We made that explicitly clear yesterday.
Yeah.
I thought at least I made it explicitly clear yesterday that I think any level of U.S. involvement, physical involvement.
This is what I'm trying to say I've been trying to say this to my Reformed buddies who have, quote unquote, it's more complicated than that, but the term is replacement theology, okay? About the church replacing Israel in God's eschatological, paradigm. Even if you full throat believe in that, okay? Why in the world, if a democratic nation, predominantly Jewish or otherwise, is willing to be a hedge and a buffer against Islamic hegemony in a very strategic part of the world, uniting and combining forces against us like it has many, many times throughout the course and the history of the West. Where did the Crusades come from? Where did the shores of Tripoli mentioned in the Battle Hymn of the Republic come from? Let me try this again. For 1,800 years, there was no nation on earth named Israel. Did Islam leave Christendom alone during that entire time? No. In fact, it did the exact opposite, did it not? Correct. During many of those 1,800 years, did Christendom hold Judaism in a very high regard for many of those 1,800 years? No, it did not. Were there historic splits and schisms between the two camps for much of that 1,800 years?
Oh, sure.
There were, okay? Were there at times, even during the Crusades, that Christians did some things to Jews that were not very nice? Yes.
Yeah.
So, was everybody in the Middle Ages just going around with Schofield Bible notes, waiting for the olive tree to bloom in Jerusalem again? Because that would mean, did Hal Lindsey publish his book in the 1970s or in the 1270s? What do you think it was? This is, again, guys, this is so easily debunked that I keep having to do it over and over again. This is me doing to some of my Reform friends, frankly, what Trump did to Iran. I'm trying to find out how many people are just misinformed or how much of this is, frankly, just a false objection and you just don't want to admit, I just hate Jews. If you're like, maybe Nick Fuentes is understood, then just own it. Because otherwise, I don't understand how you can just misread history here over and over and over again. Islam would hate us whether Israel never existed. It hated us for the 1,200 years there was an Islam that Israel did not exist. It hated us. It waged numerous offensive wars against Christendom. Numerous times. The churches of Asia Minor or modern-day Turkey didn't have, let me say this for the 7,000th time, they did not have a referendum and decide, well, you know what, on second thought, we like Muhammad's Holy Writ more. They were conquered. They were conquered. The churches of Lebanon, conquered. The churches of Assyria, conquered. Before there was a Western civilization, this is where Christianity was. Paul, when he gets converted, he's on the road to fill in the blank. Des Moines? Denver? Dallas. Where's he on the road to, guys? Damascus, which is where? Utah? Colorado? Syria. And this event took place approximately 1,600 years before our white Anglo-Saxon Protestant founders jumped on a Mayflower. Well, what happened to all the Christians in Syria? Where'd they all go? Why isn't it just a blooming olive tree of Christendom now? If someone else wants to be a check and balance against radical Islam getting hegemony in the world, let them. So Israel's offer is, tell you what, we're going to take out the trash for you. What do you need from us? Nothing. Why would we refuse the deal? Anybody know why we turn that down? It makes no sense to me. It really doesn't make any sense to me. I get people in my feed. Well, I guess you can go die for Israel. Your kids are in the Israeli Defense Force? Weird. There's a lot of couch potatoes sitting around right now in between toy lightsaber fights and reading Candace Owens that apparently think they're going to get conscripted in the Israeli Defense Force. Trust me, you're all too dumb and chubby. You're not. So turn the controller back on. There's got to be better arguments than this. Now, do you think I'm still being too nice about it now?
No, I like this.
Is this an appropriate amount of Todders and vinegar for you?
Well, no, this is Steve Dace vinegar, and
Okay.
it's a fine brand, and I have some in my cabinet at home. Yeah. That's why I work here.
All right. That being said, Heather, I do like your analogy actually a lot more than mine. It is better. Okay. The problem is that someone else will have to use their sacred blood and treasure to fire your buddy. You're right. But what if that someone else is saying, we're in? This is the most united behind Netanyahu. Dude, there are political parties right now they had to keep secret in Israel about this because they're trying to take him out in the next election cycle. Right now is the most... Dude, Naftali Bennett is coming back. Again, pay attention. Do something more than read a scroll on X. There's way more nuance here. How many of you even know Naftali Bennett's trying to get back into Israeli politics? Start an entirely new political movement to take out Bibi Netanyahu. How many of you even knew that? Probably not many. Guess what he's doing this morning? Waving like BB26. He's wearing a BB26 t-shirt on television. All right? Do some research. It's more nuanced than this. I agree. Taking out the trash here with Iran is going to require someone else's blood and treasure. Agreed?
Yes.
Yeah. Iran's just going to go away on their own, right? No. Did someone else volunteer and say, we'll use our blood and treasure? Did Israel do that? They say, we'll do it? Yeah. So why would we say no? I don't understand. I do understand there could be a spillover effect. You're right to be concerned about that. There is a risk ratio here. Just like there's a risk ratio of what happens if Iran gets a nuclear weapon. So here's the reality of living in a fallen world. There's always a risk ratio. There's never a moment of just complete and total Zen comfort. There's never a moment that we know for sure the juice is worth the squeeze. The previous generation, we call the greatest generation, cut a deal with a demonic government to take out another demonic government. And yet, it was probably the right thing to do in the spring of 1944, right? Now, because here's the thing, if you don't do that in the spring of 1944, we probably don't care what's going on in the spring of 1974, right?
Mm-hmm.
But since it worked out in the spring of 1974, didn't seem like that great of a deal, given how the world changed after the ascendancy of said demonic regime, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, we live in a fallen world, folks. This is why a biblical worldview is so important, so that you will learn to think in categories. You will understand nuances. You'll have reasonable expectations of what can truly happen this far east of Eden. What is truly possible here, this side of eternity. Let me tell you what is not possible. Perfect solutions. Ideal outcomes. Zero collateral damages. I married the woman of my dreams. There's a shot she's going to break your heart. I married the man of my dreams. There's a shot he'll leave you when he's middle-aged and has a midlife crisis, and the 26-year-old secretary bats her eyelashes. If we don't ever do anything in this world because we can't assure ourselves a perfect outcome of matters beyond our control, we'll just never do anything. So we're always assuming some risk. So we start from that premise. There's always risk, and then we have to do an honest assessment of the risk. Did we not talk yesterday about we can't fall for hysteria over how close Iran is to a nuclear weapon? Didn't we just have this conversation yesterday?
Yes.
Aaron is really skeptical. I'm at least somewhat skeptical that Iran just was suddenly this close, this conveniently. Okay. That all being said, again, because we live in an imperfect world, even though you and I are to some form of skeptical about the claims of how soon Iran really was to acquiring nuclear critical mass here, Aaron, the devastating effectiveness of Israel's operation doesn't make that risk as much of doesn't matter to us as much now, does it?
Correct.
Now, if this thing had gone off sloppy, and lots of civilians have been killed, and Iran was already in the air, and all-out war had broken out this morning, suddenly our concern about how much evidence for that really exists would be then greater, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because you know why? In an imperfect world, we're constantly doing risk-reward assessments. Constantly. Because no one's perfect, no situation is perfect. So here's the world that we're in now, and to be fair to Heather, who served our country, and I'm very grateful to her for that. And she wrote this note yesterday before the events of today. So, but I wanted to point out a criticism of our position because I liked her analogy better than ours. Okay, but the reality is the deed is done now, and so now you can choose. You can scream and yell, "Zionist cook!" Okay, I mean that'd be great. You'll get some engagement off of that because X loves, that language. All right. So, I mean, if your job, I want, I'm an X egg. Okay. And I want to go from 246 followers to 723 today. Then, just X posting Zionist cuck is I'm going to just tell you, it's a great path to engagement. More power to you. Fair?
Fair.
However, it's not the world we live in now. The deed is done. So since it's been done, and it was done to devastating effectiveness, now the world that we live in has changed. It's different than it was 24 hours ago when Heather sent her note, right? And so since the world is different than it was 24 hours ago, now we live in the world as it is. And the world as it is now to contain the potential spillover effect of this operation. And there are promising traits to that end, like the Saudis, the Turks, and others, deflecting some of the missiles and drones fired by Iran at Israel. However, last hour, did I not point out, there are still unknown risks here. How will China respond? They buy about 80% of Iran's oil every year. How many of you even knew that? They're in the middle of a trade war with us right now. I'm sorry. Tariff negotiation. Okay. Well, now they've got Trump squeezing them on one side. Now one of their largest energy sources is squeezed on the other. The last time China felt squeezed, what'd they do, folks? What'd they do the last time they felt squeezed?
COVID.
They did COVID to us. So again, even though I'm largely in favor of what Israel did here and the reason it did it, I'm also pointing out to you, because we live in an imperfect world, there are collateral instances and spillover potentials here we need to consider. All right. It's not the Iranian, whatever's left of their high command is not going to be like, you know what? On second thought, we read this whole thing wrong. That's probably not how they're reading it this morning. No, probably not. Okay. Instead, they're probably thinking, can we turn the uranium we're trying to, enrich into some form of acid rain and send the cloud over to Israel and the U.S.? That's probably what they're thinking. Okay. So, but here's the thing. They were thinking that yesterday. Okay. So the world changed and kind of didn't at the same time. Got to keep up. Any thoughts on that?
You're absolutely right. We're going to do the conservative case for Iran? I mean, David French called and said, yeah, maybe not.
Well, I don't know if there's a conservative case. There is apparently some people that claim that, Candace Owens, there's a MAGA case for Iran, apparently. Apparently there is.
Well, yeah, I want no part of that. But if this isn't even an Iran issue, listen, the West gets to defend itself. The West should defend itself. The West must defend itself. And not just on this issue. We have so fallen into this psychology that I think is embedded in this letter on so many issues. And therefore, you've got excuses of why you shouldn't when they're transing your kids. You've got excuses why COVID comes out, well, Netflix and chill. All kinds of conservatives, people of the right, had the same answers. This is dumb. We just have got to nuke the ridiculous play sheet of the 20th century and move on to something better. If we have a superior way of living that is embedded in ideals and not just comfort and having more, because that stuff is transient, if our ideals are actually true, then good and beautiful, then they are worth fighting for.
Let me say this, though, to be fair to Heather and those who are skeptical. They agree with that, which is why they're skeptical. Okay? That's why there's so much healthy skepticism. They agree with every premise that you just said. Okay? And I don't have a problem with the skepticism. What you can't be, I understand why Aaron's generation and my kids' generation, Gen X or Gen Z and the millennials, who are asked in this age group to be the ones serving in our armed forces. I completely understand and agree with why you are concerned about reflexive boomer eschatology that has your grandparents more aware of what the maneuvers of the Israeli Defense Force are in Yemen, than your own school board.
I agree,
get that.
But like I said, you didn't call for it. Our kids aren't involved. But if you really love your kids so much, the Israeli kids got mowed down in cold blood while they were dancing to music.
Correct.
All right? They get to defend themselves.
Correct. The thing that you can't do, though, is become like reflexively in the other opposite direction. The world's more complicated than that. And I think there are some prominent thought leaders on our side, frankly, that are reflexively just against, especially ones who worked in corporate media at very high levels and then had a late understanding of faith. And the scales came off their eyes late in life, who are now so aware of how they were manipulated and maybe used to manipulate people that they are now reflexively, anything that seems like it might even have a touch of conventional wisdom has to be a lie. As a general rule, reflexive philosophy is a failure, because human nature is just more complicated than that. Aaron, you want to add anything to this?
I mean, it's possible, giving the maximum benefit of the doubt, that will probably not be reciprocated, that the conservative case for Iran people are doing their best to separate the people of Iran from the government of Iran. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Given that we see, and it always blows my mind, given what Iran is now, seeing videos of that society from pre-revolution times. And it looks like it is modernizing, becoming like a Western country. And I wonder if some of that is going on. I doubt it, because it always seemed, I just saw I saw somebody just crash out over how our entire we're some sort of a colony of Israel or something like that. It always goes back to how Israel has bought and paid us off. So I don't think that's
at this
happening.
point. A lot of people just have Israeli derangement syndrome, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So maybe if you want to give a maximum benefit of the doubt, they're trying to look out for the Iranian people, but ultimately, either this Iranian government and the Ayatollah, they are trying to develop a nuclear bomb to sow chaos in the Middle East, to destroy Israel, who, whether or not you like it, is one of our allies. Either they're trying to do that or not. Now, we can debate what our overall interests are in the Middle East. I have my own questions, but either they're doing that or they're not. If you do not believe that they are actually trying to develop the weapon, the one, you can present your evidence. If you do believe that, then you shouldn't have a problem with Israeli unilateral strikes. And I'm with you when it comes to, I don't want the U.S. to be involved here. I mean, Israel just proved that they can fend for themselves fairly adeptly, love them or hate them. But either the reality is that Iran is a threat to one of our allies in the Middle East, or they're not. We can debate what our interests overall in the Middle East are. And I have my own questions, as I just said. I'm trying to make this as plain and clear as possible. But you can't. I don't believe you can, in good faith, deny that they are a threat. Iran's government. As much as I want to separate them from the people, and I pray that there is peace in Iran, that human beings will flourish there, and that the gospel will be able to flourish there someday. But today is not that day. It doesn't appear to me. You're free to disagree.
Ultimately, we're going to see who's right and who's wrong by how this plays out. I think some of my friends who are very pro-Israel, conservative Jews, I think it's a little too early to be, dancing on tropes that there won't be any spillover, that there won't be any collateral damages from this. It's a little early, I think, for that. Okay.
For sure.
I think we need to let things play out all the more. I don't think we know. There's no way of knowing with the spillover potential of this. I do think there's more of an opportunity to control the spillover potential of this than there is waking up one day, 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and Iran demonstrates nuclear capability. Because I think once that genie got out of the bottle, then I think we're on defense from that time forward. But that doesn't mean, again, just because you're on offense, that you're in control. There are forces at work in this world that we cannot control. More in a moment. Folks, in these unprecedented times, make sure, now that we're getting this thing called the real estate market going again, at least trying to, make sure you've got an agent that can help you navigate that process, because a lot of things have changed in the 5 years since we last had one that mattered. 6 years, frankly. So the summer before COVID. So if that's you, we're going to hook you up where the name says it all. realestateagentsitrust.com. We've got a network of agents from all over the country, and whether you want to get across town, across the country, these are agents whose track record of success has been proven. That's why we recommend them to you, and they'll help you get to where you ultimately want to go, which is across the finish line with a successful testimony in what can be a stressful process, even in the best of circumstances. And that's not the circumstances we're in right now. All right, so go right now, though, and get started with the agent you need at realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, that's realestateagentsitrust.com. All right, you guys ready for some more Feedback Friday?
Yes.
All right. Matt Adelman says, my wife and I are about to have a baby boy, and I'm trying to research vaccines. I remember a year or two ago, you had a guest on that compiled a list of childhood vaccines and broke down what was in all of them. I can't find that guest list or a book you guys mentioned. I was wondering if you'd be so kind to recommend it. So, Aaron, I think you're the one that knows the name of this book. Yeah. I get at least 10 emails about this every week. I know. All right. So
write this down.
Yep.
Turtles All the Way Down?
No.
No?
Oh, that's another one?
Yeah, Turtles All the Way Down is a great book.
Turtles All the Way Down is one. All right, what's the one you recommended, Aaron?
This one is the vaccine-friendly plan. The vaccine-friendly plan. Write that down. The vaccine-friendly plan.
Also, go to the Highwire website. Go to the Children's Health Defense website. Lots of
Dr.
resources.
Paul Thomas is the author, and Jennifer Margulis. Now, Dr. Paul Thomas has another book out, Vax Facts. I will be honest with, so both of those books, Vax Facts and the Vaccine-Friendly Plan, are just for parents who are maybe open to vaccines but want to be educated, and it just presents the facts. Just presents the facts.
Or just listen to me and don't vaccinate your kids.
I will say this.
Oh, gosh.
We are not. We are as skeptical in our family, let's put it that way, as ever before with vaccines, because our poor dear Abby. I mean, we did a very delayed plan with Ben, and he seems to be fine. I mean, he's very weird, but so are his parents, so that's fine with us. We tried to do somewhat of the same thing with Abby, and she had a bad reaction. No, she's fine. She's in okay health, but she had such a reaction that I'm not really confident that we'll do any more with her. So I can't talk about this issue and be honest with you or have credibility if I'm not honest about where we're heading towards in our family. So I just want to put that out there as well.
All right. So Turtles All the Way Down, and then the name of the book one more time on your end, Aaron?
The Vaccine-Friendly Plan by Dr. Paul Thomas.
All right. So hopefully you guys wrote all those down. Justin says, I thought you were relatively smart, but we're already in debt, so it's a little bit more. It might just be the dumbest juvenile take I've heard on the big, beautiful bill. It might be. You're right. Thank you, Justin. Let's go next. Dennis in Spokane. I mean, I don't know all the takes you've heard, so it's very possible that is the dumbest one. I mean, I can't argue with that. I couldn't possibly know all the takes on it that Justin has heard, so it's possible mine is the dumbest. Okay.
Because Congress is just ready to go to pass cuts after cuts after cuts, and you, Steve Deace, in your opinion, is standing authoritative.
Yes.
This is where, are you watching anything that's happening?
To me, to be serious, this goes back to what I said before. You have to accept the world for what it is. If there was a bill on the table that cut $20 trillion in debt and gave me all the same things that the big beautiful bill does currently, but $20 trillion in debt reduction, and it had even a modicum of a chance to get the votes, meaning like at least 10%. So it was worth at least trying it. Do you not think I would not do that?
I actually know this guy.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
John is his name, right?
Let me go back and see. Justin with a Y.
Oh, Justin with a Y.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know him. I was just talking to him last night, and he presented actually a 50-point plan, very detailed plan, all of which very easily accomplishable on how to actually cut the deficit. And, I just thought it was really, really smart.
Only 50, too. Yeah. Only 50. So listen, that option isn't on the table. So you want me to then not take all the other good stuff the bill does because 5 people want to cut another $1 trillion or $2 trillion? And won't vote for it unless we get it. Hey, I hope they can get the cuts, but I'm just going to tell you right now, we're so far in debt, cutting another $1 trillion or $2 trillion out of this debt, you're not going to feel that at all, guys. You're just not. Okay. You're going to feel a lot of the other things the bill offers, though. But you can come to I'm okay if you have a different conclusion. Again, because I understand that people can disagree when we live in an uncertain world. I'm going to fight you on things that I think are very definitive. And then I'm going to have a lot of grace and mercy on the things that I'm not sure do. Okay. Dennis in Spokane says, buy, sell, or hold. Elon Musk runs as an independent and wins the 2028 presidential race.
It's not Wednesday.
I know, but I thought this one was interesting, so I put in the feedback, and he sent it to me. Sorry. Sell.
He's not American.
Sell
what
both.
What are you talking about? He's not.
He's not.
He wasn't born here.
I know, but do we still think that would stop him if he wanted to do it? You guys don't think? You guys, listen. Would there not be a federal judge somewhere if they thought there was a chance Musk could take enough vote away from Trump or from J.D. Vance to make sure that whatever you know, a mental ward patient the Democrats nominate.
Yes, well, if that's...
Would find that natural-born citizen is unconstitutional.
Yeah,
okay.
I am quite...
With a universal injunction.
This is just me, though. I think this is a moot question. Now, I don't know. I don't have any inside info at all. I'm just outside observer. It's quite apparent to me that the Vances, Vance himself is probably a little bit, and his cadre are probably tighter with Elon Musk than Elon Musk is with Trump's cadre. Not that there's all that lack of overlap between the two camps, but I just get I don't know. I get that impression. Maybe you don't, but that's the impression that I get. So I think it's kind of a moot.
You get the same impression or not?
He forgot to take his pills for a couple of days. He's back. He's fine.
Yeah, can you believe that was last
Slap
week?
her. He didn't take his pills.
That was last week.
Figure it all out in one fell swoop. You're on a roll, brother. You are on a roll. All right, and I dig that about you.
It's Friday.
Okay, it is. That's your day. We haven't said that in a while, but that is your day. Yes, Friday is Todd's day. Where to go next? All right, this one is fascinating. I got this note a few weeks ago. We just didn't have time to get to it. But in light of what we've just seen, I find this note even more fascinating now. All right, so this is from Ethan. Got time? Yeah. All right. As a former Israeli infantry soldier who served in Gaza in the early 2000s, I can tell you, in all honesty, Israel does not want to win the war. Nothing new under the sun. Another operation, more dead soldiers, more deadly attacks on civilians. Nothing is resolved. He's talking about his frustration in response to what's been going on since October 7th. There's a slogan the propaganda media runs, the scamdemic days, together we will win. But there is no win. There won't be a win unless Israel conquers all of Gaza, resettles it, and deports every person out there. There's no such thing as you say as a Palestinian. But even President Trump knows Israel doesn't know what it wants to do. He gave them a pass to do what is necessary, and it still didn't. I was a soldier in Gaza. I was blown up in a base in Gaza on June 27th, 2004. I protected the Israelis living in the Gush Katif, I think that's how that's pronounced, region of Gaza. That disengagement broke me completely. I realized then we were not going to win. The so-called leadership doesn't want to win because they don't understand Islam. They want a small and smart army that's 100% dependent on America. There are no innocent Palestinians. Many of the civilians crossed the border into Israel. Their kids burnt houses, raped and killed just as much as the adults. Killing a few leaders of Hamas is nice, but does not win a war. Islamic Jihad doesn't care about people. It was always about war and conquest. The thing is, if you know a little bit about their history, you look into Jordan, you look into Jordan, Egypt, Lebanon, Kuwait, you can see these Arab nations didn't want the so-called Palestinians in their countries either. Everywhere they lived, the host country all they got was terror or death, Jew or Muslim. That is all very true. That's all very true. So I got no qualms with Trump wanting to cut deals with Arab nations like the Saudis and Qatar. His Abrahamic Accords were huge. Giving Iran nuclear power, though, would be a huge mistake. But again, Israel won't do what is necessary, so who are they to complain? The Middle East is not the West. Western rules do not apply there. Only power, money, and respect. The government seems lost. The ruling elites in Israel keep arguing about who is a terrorist and who isn't, and what kind of operation can be undertaken all the time while more aid is given, which Hamas then just steals from the people. I love you guys' show. I've been watching it since 2020. Best show out there. P.S. I'm what's considered a Messianic Jew, though I don't call myself that. I just believe in Yeshua is Messiah. That's all that matters. That's from Ethan. I would love to know, Ethan, I'm reading this today, because, brother, I would love to know what are your thoughts today.
Yeah.
From a few weeks ago when you sent this to me in great frustration. I would love to know what you think this morning, given the events of the last 18 hours.
Me too, because of that part. Israel won't do what is necessary. And this is what I alluded to when we talked about this on the Deace Group. If this isn't about the imminence of nukes, then it's actually more fascinating to talk about then what else has changed. And is the answer now to they will do what is necessary because of October 6th? It's take this long to get their ducks in the row to organize the political will, whatever it is. But I think you're right to come around and see if he comes back to us after this and knows that we read this on the air. If he says this is, I'm seeing with a new set of glasses now.
That is fascinating, because I was wondering that when it would have probably been impossible for it to make the show and gotten into your inbox in the last 12, 18 hours or so. But we'll see again, because taking on Iran, make no mistake about it, as dangerous as Hamas is or was, taking on Iran is a whole other ballgame. It's going to take a level of resolve that, just completely supersedes what we've seen from Israel, especially in the early days against Hamas. So I think his concern, I think even doing what they did last night does show that some of that resolve, at least some of that resolve, is there. We'll see what Iran's response will be, and then the second and third and fourth order impacts after that.
At this point, I think maybe the best case scenario is similar to what happened to the Soviet Union, that they had been diminished enough by the soft power of the West that the dissidents were able, within the culture, led by a problematic figure on his own, named Boris Yeltsin and others, to essentially rise up at that point and finish off the job. Okay, I think that is probably the best case scenario. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, how long we've been hearing for our entire adult life about the people on the ground there don't really want this. When will they rise up?
Now we kind of find that out. Okay.
Force the
because
issue.
Again, there are risks to this.
Yeah.
All right. There are risks to this, because if we read that wrong about the people on the ground, then what may come next is an even more zealous, angry, bloodthirsty version of what was largely eliminated last night. Okay? There's no riskless propositions. Last week we commemorated June 6th. Why? That's D-Day. If that mission fails, and we launched that at a time that we were actually, and the Allies were seizing the momentum in World War II. If that mission fails, you're living man in the high castle right now. Basically, they banked all of Western civilization on that mission. They bet it all on black. Went to the craps table and bet it all on Sword, Juno, and 5 beaches in northern France. Okay, if that thing fails, you're living man in the high castle right now.
And in return, the children and the grandchildren of that generation have now given Europe over to Islam.
Correct.
See, that's why the contrast is here. These people are like, no. I mean, really, in a place where everybody refuses to act, there's never any consequences. It's just, to me, it's refreshing. We're gonna fight on this hill. It's worth fighting for.
Let's close with this one from Audrey Jimenez. My grandfather died almost a decade ago. Not a day goes by that I don't ache for his presence in my life again. He was an icon of a man, a retired Texas game warden commander, humble family man, faithful servant of Christ, an avid Rush Limbaugh listener. I mean, imagine your grandkids a decade after you're dead still, yearning for your presence. What a legacy to have that left for you. In all my memories at Grandma and Grandpa's house, Rush's voice was always on in the background. There were a handful of times where Grandpa shushed us kids and made us listen to Rush's hot takes. I always thought it was strange that the Rush Limbaugh show had a permanent residence in my grandparents' home, but now I am a homeschooling mother of 3, and you guys' show holds permanent residence in our home. And I just wanted to give you guys appreciation for fighting the good fight with truth and with grace.
That's very kind.
That is very kind, Audrey. Very kind. So thank you very, very much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Closing thoughts here. We got about 2 minutes left. What do you think?
Well, listen, pray, set aside the particulars, and yes, absolutely, pray for peace. But the simple fact of the matter is peace has a better chance if there are men of goodwill who are willing to stand on the line and say, here and no further. You make your decision now. We've made ours. That's how you ultimately get to the peace. You have got to deal with the bullies. If you never deal with them, they will break you. They will take everything.
I don't know about you guys, but during these No Kings protests this weekend, I cannot wait to see the Fags for IRGC troops show up. That's going to be real, and that's going to be spectacular.
Queers for Iran. I'm with Queers for Iran. Yes.
That's not even a joke.
And then we're going to come back with our, have you tried being a queer in Iran memes? And here we go again all over. It's not even a joke. That's what made me laugh out loud. I mean, Aaron?
You know what's happening.
Can we
golf clap level brilliance right there,
Let's take this all the way. Can the queers just start wearing burqas instead of hanging it all out there? Can they?
Yeah, I'd be good with that. Be good with that.
Next week in American City gets to Molotov cocktail scorch mark by a bare-chested Iranian illegal alien with a rainbow flag behind, a trainee flag behind him. Is that what you're saying? Yes.
When we come back on Monday, the month of June is going to be more than half over. I think it's pretty clear, is it not? This has been one of the most normal Junes that I remember.
In many a moon.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, the only thing standing in the way of that is the GayFL.
Todd, you were going to be my best of the week, actually, for real. And
it's
then
their branding. I'm just pointing it.
He does have a point. Yes. All right, we're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, we're going to see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Hopefully you earned that Happy Father's Day. Romans 8:28.